guys. So in this set video here, you can see who's the first person you see. Raven Johnson showing love with Kelsey Mitchell. That's the first person you see. Raven Johnson in this video. To me, they did this to try to show solidarity with Raven Johnson. Like, no. She's a team player. Look at her showing love to Kelsey Mitchell.
Right there. That's the Indiana Fever's social media team in full damage control mode. 16 hours after Raven Johnson refused to shake Caitlin Clark's hand during training camp, the organization posted a carefully edited video showing Johnson dapping up Kelsey Mitchell. First person you see in that clip, Raven Johnson. That's not an accident. That's a PR strategy. And it tells us everything we need to know about how serious this situation has become behind closed doors.
We don't want to see her showing love to Kelsey Mitchell. We want to see her showing love to Caitlin Clark to show that there's no beef, there's no issue, I want to win. That's all we need to see. I don't need to see her slapping hands with Kelsey Mitchell. Look at this. Oh, not only is she slapping hands with Kelsey Mitchell, she's standing right behind Sophie Cunningham.
Notice what's missing from that damage control video? Any interaction between Johnson and Clark. Zero acknowledgement of the incident that had the entire WNBA community talking for 24 hours straight. The Fever showed us Johnson with Mitchell, Johnson standing behind Sophie Cunningham, Johnson smiling and being a team player. But the one clip that would actually matter? The one that would prove there's no tension between their franchise cornerstone and their new defensive specialist from South Carolina? Nowhere to be found.
Oh, and this is another Raven Johnson video. So it looked like to me, they very much could be trying to hype up Raven.
They won.
Because I'm trying to see here. Now, I don't believe we've seen any videos of Justine Pascott. I ain't seen Justine Pascott yet. Let's watch this real quick.
I'm so excited. So excited. Woo! Hello. What's going down? We got vibes.
This is day one of training camp. These are supposed to be the feel-good moments that organizations plaster across social media to build excitement for the season. Instead, the Fever is scrambling to convince their fan base that the awkward handshake refusal everyone dissected frame by frame doesn't represent a deeper problem. They released not one but two separate videos within 16 hours, both prominently featuring Raven Johnson interacting with teammates. The subtext is deafening. Please don't think we have a locker room issue.
So that was everybody showing up, ready to go for day one. But just like I told y'all, man, this whole situation involving Raven Johnson is going to be crazy. Now, it's clear as day that the Indiana Fever is definitely focusing on defense, judging off all of the clips that came out yesterday. This is one clip here, and they're definitely making it their business to hype up Raven Johnson. I don't know what they know, but I just feel like...
But here's what makes this situation more complicated than a simple personality clash. The Fever's entire defensive identity for the 2025 season is built around Raven Johnson. Every clip from training camp shows defensive drills, defensive rotations, defensive intensity. Johnson is front and center in the team's marketing. They're not just hoping she fits in, they're building their system around her. Which means if there's genuine tension between Johnson and Clark, the front office has a serious problem. You can't win in the WNBA when your two most important players don't want to be on the court together.
We have to talk about Natasha Cloud. Now, Natasha Cloud took to social media yesterday, and she's a little mad. She's definitely a little mad, man. She dropped this message. She said, "I've given my heart to every team and community I've been a part of, never fully knowing if the impact I hoped for was truly felt. In this moment, though, receiving so much love, support, and adversary means everything. It's a powerful reminder that impact I've wanted to make beyond the basketball court is real and aligned with what I believe God has called me to do through this game."
And this pattern didn't start at training camp. Raven Johnson played 4 years under Dawn Staley at South Carolina, where she won a national championship in 2024. Staley's program is legendary for producing elite talent. Aja Wilson, Aaliyah Boston, Zia Cook, players who come from South Carolina are supposed to understand team culture, sacrifice, and professionalism. That's the Staley standard. So when Johnson displays this kind of behavior on day one with the Fever, it raises a fundamental question. What exactly did she learn about being a teammate during those 4 years in Columbia?
Y and Z, And I just, like, we were like, girl, first of all, you get a write-off because it's a real estate investment for you. So already money off. You rent it out, you sign it, you have signage all over the building. You rent it out for leagues to be played with that you don't think that we know that you're getting excess money on, and all the other shit that comes with it. So, like, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? So, yeah, we'll give you updates on the CBA when we get the Seattle owner came up and was like, you don't.
Yeah, so, like, she's been having these moments.
The timing makes it worse. This isn't happening in January during the off-season when there's time to smooth things over privately. This is training camp. The entire league is watching. Scouts, executives, media members, fans, everyone saw that handshake refusal. Everyone saw Clark's reaction, and now everyone's watching to see how Indiana's front office handles it. Because if they let this slide, if they prioritize keeping Johnson happy over maintaining team chemistry, they're sending a message to Clark about where she stands in the organization's hierarchy.
Where she going at owners, she definitely going at fans, and she talked too much. Somebody said she's a career 39% shooter at the tail end of her career. I'm sure teams have offered her backup money, but she probably still thinks she's a starter. That's probably exactly what's happening. But Natasha Cloud had to do one of these numbers and look in the mirror and realize that you could be part of the reason why you're not picked up yet. Why you're not getting signed. I don't believe the league got a conspiracy against Natasha Cloud. I believe Natasha Cloud bit off a little bit more than she could chew. Now, guys, get down in the comment section. Let me know y'all thoughts about this. Keep them bills on. And until next time, man.
Here's what we need to understand about the bigger picture. Natasha Cloud remains unsigned as a free agent right now, and her situation connects directly to what's happening in Indiana. Cloud posted on Threads recently about giving her heart to every team and community she's been part of, questioning whether her impact was truly felt. She's been vocal about league issues, calling out ownership about arena losses and revenue sharing. She confronted the Seattle owner publicly about financial complaints, and now she's sitting at home while training camps are underway across the league. Someone in the comments nailed it. Cloud is a career 39% shooter at the tail end of her career. Teams have probably offered her backup money, but she still thinks she's a starter. That disconnect between self-perception and market value is killing her free agency. But there's another factor nobody wants to say out loud. When you spend your offseason antagonizing owners, criticizing league decisions, and creating headlines for the wrong reasons, front offices remember, they're not blackballing her. They're just choosing players who bring less drama for the same production.
Feel like I'm 9 years in. Go Fever girl! What's happening? What's good? First day out. Day one, again. Day one. Woo! You guys ready to rock and roll? Year one.
How you feeling?
Feverish. Hey!
She happy to be there.
Excited. Home. Crib, 3 months 7.
Yes! First day! Woohoo!
Good. Ready to go? Year 2, here we go. I have no message. Let's get it.
The Raven Johnson situation feels different because of what it reveals about organizational priorities. Look at how the Fever is handling their roster construction. They brought in Johnson specifically for defense. They're running defensive-focused practices. They're posting videos that hype up Johnson's intensity and defensive instincts. All of that makes sense on paper. Indiana gave up too many easy baskets last season, and they needed someone who could set the tone defensively. But when you prioritize a defensive specialist to the point where you're running interference for her after she disrespects your franchise player on day 1 of camp, that's not building a championship culture. That's appeasing someone who hasn't earned the right to set terms. Clark is the reason Indiana sold out every home game last season. She's the reason their road games became destination events. She's the reason the Fever went from irrelevant to must-watch television. And Johnson just got here. So what should the Fever have done differently? Simple. Address it immediately and publicly. Have Johnson and Clark appear together in a video that same day, laughing about the awkward moment, showing genuine connection, make it clear that whatever happened was a misunderstanding and these two are locked in for the season ahead. Instead, the organization tried to pretend it didn't happen, then posted sanitized clips of Johnson with other teammates, hoping everyone would forget about the elephant in the room. That approach might work with casual fans who only check highlights, but hardcore WNBA followers, the people who actually watch full games and drive engagement on social media, they see through it immediately. and they're not going to let it go until they get real answers about what's happening inside that locker room. The comparison to Cloud's situation matters, because it highlights how fragile these team dynamics can be. Cloud thought she had leverage because of her experience and her championship pedigree with Washington in 2019. She thought she could say whatever she wanted about owners and league economics because her on-court value would override any concerns about her personality. She was wrong, and now she's learning that teams would rather sign younger players with less baggage, even if those players aren't quite as good right now. Johnson is at the opposite end of her career, but she's making a similar miscalculation. She thinks her defensive reputation from South Carolina gives her the standing to set the tone in Indiana, even if that means showing up Clark on day one. She thinks the Fever needs her more than she needs them. But that's only true if the organization allows it to be true. If Indiana's front office had any backbone, they'd make it crystal clear that Clark is the franchise. Everyone else is here to support her, and anyone who can't get on board with that reality can find another team. The Dawn Staley angle keeps coming back because it's genuinely puzzling. Staley runs one of the tightest programs in college basketball. Her players don't showboat. They don't create unnecessary drama. They don't disrespect teammates, especially not in public settings where cameras are rolling. So either Johnson didn't absorb those lessons during her 4 years at South Carolina, or something about the Fever situation specifically triggered this response. Neither explanation is particularly encouraging for Indiana's coaching staff. And here's the part that should worry Fever fans the most. This is just training camp. The games haven't even started yet. There's no playoff pressure, no media scrutiny about wins and losses, no tension about playing time or shot distribution. If Johnson and Clark can't maintain basic professional courtesy during glorified practice sessions, what happens when the season starts and real stakes are involved? What happens when Clark takes a shot that Johnson thinks she should have taken? What happens when Johnson gets benched for defensive lapses and thinks Clark should be held to the same standard? Championship teams don't have these problems. You know what Aja Wilson did when Kelsey Plum joined the Aces? She welcomed her, deferred to her when appropriate, and built one of the most dangerous pick-and-roll partnerships in WNBA history. You know what Breanna Stewart did when Sabrina Ionescu became the focal point of New York's offense? She adjusted her game, found ways to complement Ionescu's strengths, and helped build a championship contender. That's what elite players do. They figure out how to make it work, because winning matters more than ego. The Fever's social media strategy reveals how unprepared they were for this moment. Professional sports organizations have crisis communication plans for exactly these scenarios: player conflicts, public relations disasters, viral moments that threaten team chemistry. You're supposed to get ahead of the story, control the narrative, and show unity. Instead, Indiana let the handshake incident dominate the news cycle for an entire day before posting those weak damage control videos that didn't even address the actual issue. That organizational incompetence is almost as concerning as the player conflict itself, because it suggests the Fever's front office doesn't fully understand what they have in Caitlin Clark or how to protect the culture they're trying to build around her. They're treating Johnson like an equally important piece who deserves equal consideration, when the reality is that Clark is the sun and everyone else is a planet orbiting around her. That's not disrespectful to Johnson, that's just acknowledging market reality and on-court value. So where does this go from here? One of three scenarios plays out. Best case, Johnson and Clark have a genuine conversation, clear the air, and develop real chemistry over the course of training camp and preseason. The handshake incident becomes a footnote, and by opening night everyone's moved on. That's possible, but it requires both players to be more mature than they've shown so far. Middle case, they maintain professional distance, coexist without genuine connection, and the Fever muddles through the season with decent results but obvious tension. Clark puts up her numbers, Johnson plays solid defense, and they win enough games to make the playoffs. But they never become the cohesive unit they could be, and they flame out in the first round because championship teams need genuine chemistry, not just talent. Worst case, this festers, creates genuine locker room division, and forces the front office to make a choice between their franchise player and their defensive specialist. If it comes to that, there's only one correct answer. You keep Clark and move on from Johnson, regardless of what you gave up to acquire her. But that scenario would be a massive organizational failure because it means Indiana's front office misjudged the fit so badly that they couldn't make it work for even one season. The Natasha Cloud comparison keeps resonating because both situations come down to the same fundamental question: how much drama are you willing to tolerate from a player who isn't your franchise cornerstone? Cloud brings veteran leadership and championship experience, but she also brings public feuds with ownership and controversial statements that create distractions. Johnson brings elite defensive instincts and South Carolina pedigree, but she also brings whatever attitude led to that handshake refusal on day one of camp. Teams are making the calculation that the drama isn't worth it. Not because these players can't help you win games, but because building a championship culture requires everyone buying into the same vision, and players who create unnecessary friction make that exponentially harder. It's the same reason Kyrie Irving bounced around the league despite being one of the most talented guards in basketball. Talent only takes you so far when the personality issues create constant organizational headaches. The Fever has a choice to make, and they need to make it soon. They can establish clear hierarchy, make it obvious that Clark is the franchise and everyone else needs to fall in line, and create the kind of culture that attracts future free agents who want to win. Or they can try to keep everyone happy, avoid difficult conversations, and hope the problem resolves itself. One approach builds championships, the other builds mediocrity. So here's the question for Fever fans. Do you trust your front office to handle this correctly? Because based on their response so far, posting sanitized social media clips instead of addressing the issue directly, the answer should probably be no. And that's the scariest part of this entire situation. Not that two players had an awkward moment on day one of training camp, but that the organization's response suggests they don't know how to fix it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Johnson and Clark can make this work, or is this situation already beyond repair? And if you were running the Fever's front office, how would you handle it differently? Because right now, it looks like they're hoping the problem disappears on its own. And in professional sports, that approach never works.